You are a financial analyst. You want to give us some insight into what's happening with our books, our financial books in Nigeria currently.
Okay, so most organizations are still trying to close their books for the period, and um, most of them are having calls with their auditor at this point in time. And considering the financial year in 2023 just ended recently, there have been several audit and controls engagement to ensure that there is reliance and there's integrity of the financial reporting and to communicate the feedback of the performance of businesses to the stakeholders. Stakeholders simply are the main users of the external report, the financial report, and they could expand as far as the shareholders, the customers, the suppliers, and is a very good time. You're likely to place more reliance on a report that is audited. Someone have provided an assurance on it than um, to place reliance on a report that is unaudited or that it doesn't have any reliance on someone that on a firm or an integrity that has the competence to provide that assurance to it. So that's basically what we're seeing happening around this time.
All right, thank you very much, Tosin. Now we are looking at the commodity market and we are streamlining it to palm oil. You know, the importation of food generally in Nigeria, and using palm oil as a case study. How would you, describe our importation of food in Nigeria currently?
So basically within Nigeria, food and beverage is impacted, inflation of food and beverage is impacted by two major things, which is the prices of food and beverage is impacted by two major things, which is simply the FX and the inflation. So currently Nigerian inflation is around 28.92 from the report that the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics released on Monday. And we know that there was over a 38% devaluation of the foreign currency last year, which means that the average parallel market rate of which an average person could source the dollar or source the FX is about above 1,300 when the official exchange rate is oscillating between above 8,000 naira. Now, what that implies, considering the fact that Nigeria is a major importer of food oil, palm oil, palm oil in the sense that the finished product. It's important to know that Nigeria, early as far back in the 1950s and 1960s, Nigeria was a major producer of palm kernel and even palm oil. Majority have the news have it that, or information or history has it that majority of the palm kernels in Malaysia and Indonesia, which account for over 85% of the total world output in palm oil, is being produced, was sourced from Nigeria. That is, if you're looking at when it comes to palm oil production, the palm oil production, it's important to know that it all starts from the palm kernel. Palm kernel is being produced largely within Malaysia and Indonesia, and palm oil is being refined and finished good is being refined and sent. China is also leading that particular market. Now, the question is majorly, what is the real issue if Nigeria have been doing so well within the palm kernel space previously within the 1950s and 1960s? What did they get wrong this time around that they are not able to do so well? And Nigeria is not even among the first five. Nigeria is about the fifth or sixth when it comes to the production of palm oil in the global scale. So remember, I made mention that two countries, Malaysia and Indonesia, account for over 85% of the production, and um that's to say that there is really an issue. First, it's important to know that over 90% of Nigerian farmers that are playing within the palm oil space are substantive farmers. That is, they are practicing substantive agriculture. Basically, they just want to produce for and consume for them to use at home. And for a business like that, you need to take it to the commercial space, bring it to get a lot of aggregators to be able to play within that industry. Unlike when we have forest reserve for the likes of cocoa, um, over just like about 5% forest reserve is allocated to palm oil, and those are one of the major issues. It's not like Nigeria actually got it right with cocoa, but if you look at the foreign trade statistics, we have that when it comes to agriculture, cocoa is always within within the first three. As at Q3, cocoa was number one. Flowers and others like hibiscus and others were number two. We have sesame seed coming number three. We have cashew nut playing within number four or five. But if you look at the detailed report of the last trade on agriculture, we don't find palm kernel there. We don't have palm kernel there. But if you go back, just the same way the granite pyramids of Kano was there, the cocoa malls of the West was there. We also have that Edo and Akwa Ibom, which are predominantly the places where we have rich deposit of palm kernel is not being refined now. That begs a question that first, we don't have a lot of people, or we don't have the government intervening. We don't have forest reserve to be able to ensure that the right seedlings get to the right farmers. We don't have that the right training for the people getting to the right training by the right institutions, getting to the right people who are playing within those particular sector. It is also important to note that aside from the production, Nigeria is targeting about 1.25 metric tons when it comes to producing palm oil, the production of palm oil. Just now, aside from the fact that you want to produce just about 1.25 metric tons per day, it's important to note that production is not just the only thing. You also need to find a way whereby you are able to get the major value. So if you look at the total value chain, you're only having about just 10% or less than 10% of the total value of palm oil that is got from the production. So the merchandise, the manufacturing, the merchandise, the processing, further processing before becoming palm oil is also a place to focus on. So most Nigerians are not likely to trade a derivative or hedge against the movement in palm oil, unlike the movement in the crude oil. Just like we have observed that crude oil dropped by about 0.5% to about 77 dollars, sorry, and almost everybody, the federal government is putting their neck all out. But if we're able to do it the same way we did for cocoa, cocoa has been consistent within that particular trade export. I think we could also get it right with palm oil or produce from palm kernel, since we've been doing it right in the 1950s and in the 1960s. You just need to realign our priorities once again.
Much for that one. Now, it may interest you to know that locally, palm oil is consumed, locally or domestically, we actually consume up to 2.4 million tons on the average, whereas Nigeria is able to actually produce about 800 tons on a yearly basis. How would you suggest we bridge this gap?
Okay, this question has been just like we said, we only have a few players. In fact, when you look at it, it's only majorly FT and cocoa that is majorly playing in the export of palm crude. And if you even look at the books of FT and cocoa, you will see that they are doing more, they are getting more value from cocoa than even the palm kernel. So one thing is to produce. The answer is not that there is no market in Nigeria to consume the palm oil. We are importing a lot of palm oil from Indonesia, Malaysia. We're also importing from China. The answer is we don't have the right processing facilities or to convert this raw palm kernel into finished goods. It's not like the land is not there. It's not like the resource to be able to generate the palm kernel is not there. We've got it right before. Nigeria was even one of the Nigeria was exporting about 40% of the total palm kernel or palm output of palm kernel business as far back as the 1950s. So if you are exporting from 40, you're contributing about 40% of the total trade of palm kernel 60 years ago. And you're now contributing less than 5% means that you need to realign some priorities. And some of the um, priorities to realign is to serve the over 220 million Nigerians who actually consume palm oil. Although it's important to note that only a fragment of the palm oil is consumed with at the base level. Majority of them use it for industrial or use it in making of palm cosmetics like food cosmetics and other byproduct of palm kernel. So what is important to know is that you need to play in the particular space of not just planting, but also having an aggregator hub. Nigeria does not have a sole aggregator hub for you to be able to harness all the palm kernel. Also, it's most known that for palm you can get more of it from the dry season and you can get less. So you get majority of the output from the dry season between November and February. So what do you do to ensure that it's being stored properly, it's being collected properly, it's being stored properly, it's being preserved, and it is made ready for export? If you're looking at the grading of the palm kernel, an average Indonesian or a Malaysian palm kernel is going to have a higher grade than the Nigerian palm kernel, simply not because that Nigerian soil is not able to produce a high level grade palm kernel, but it's just simply because they've not passed through the right processes, the right storage facilities, the right preservation techniques, the right nutrition for those plants. And also, once we get the palm kernel, we don't have there's no reputable organization, there's no strong organization that is able to produce to meet the demand. So if there is a market, I think we should supply market, not just Nigeria, but also across West Africa. I think we should also address the issue of converting that palm kernel into finished goods.
Oh, well, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, I will see that food inflation rate as at December last year on a year-on-year basis, was slated at 33.93%. And this is an increase from the previous year, 2022. Now, how would you say that the importation of palm oil in Nigeria, how would you say it has impacted the inflation rate?
Okay, so when it comes to the food inflation, it is important to note that inflation on food index is majorly aggregated based on all the food products that are being consumed. So we have what are the major consumption, just like we said that palm oil is something that is consumed as vegetable oils used in the production of food. But speaking to that, just like by the time we were addressing the December inflation, we knew that it was going into the festive season. Among the prices of goods and commodities that increase in value the most consist of tomato, onions, and rice, turkey. So majority of that was people were trying to shop for Christmas or consume for Christmas during the festive period. So, but aside that, there was also consumption of oil. In fact, some organization added that they give rice and oil, although some organizations don't give oil. So now take note, if you have to consume oil because you have to use the oil in production of your rice, and majority of this is being imported. We know what the exchange rate that I've been mentioned that aside from the exchange rate, there's also the increase in the prices of goods and commodities. So which essentially the exchange rate was what made things really relatively we had the exchange rate on the imported foods. A large number of Nigerian foods and beverage are being imported compared to those that are being sourced locally. And for those that are being sourced locally, we also know that the fuel subsidy also had an impact because the cost of diesel, the cost of logistics has increased significantly. Diesel is selling above 1,000 per liter has increased significantly. Storage and mobility of this product or this byproduct is also an impact. So those are some of the major factors that made Nigeria to have an all-time high increase in the food index, and the inflation rate at 28.92 was Nigerian all-time high because it has been on a spike for 12 months starting from December 2022.
Okay, just like you said earlier about Nigeria being one of the highest producers of palm oil in the 1960s, and and we can see a drastic decline because now we are, in fact, we are not even amongst the 10 major producers of palm oil. How would you, profile a solution, with regards to this? How should government, help this sector to ensure that we are more productive?
So the agricultural sector is a very, very important sector for Nigeria, considering that that is more or less like an alternative for the sole dependence on crude oil. About 90% of Nigerian export revenue is got from crude oil and natural gas, about 84% from crude oil. Natural gas and its other derivatives account for the other 12%. Agriculture is contributing Raw materials is contributing just like about 4%. So most especially we call that the Dutch disease because you've discovered that you found a new bride. So you think that it's time to do away with the farmer all the families that have been contributing to it. So it's important to note that the demand for byproduct of crude oil is reducing, so such that they are exploring other alternative sources of energy are currently being explored, such as electric vehicles, solar panel vehicles, and all that. Now that means the government has to invest so much in the capital expenditure of the agriculture. Now, investing rightly in agriculture, one, ensure that there are enough forest reserve for you to be able to grow this farm produce. Ensure that you also have a very good monitoring system to support and programs to support the farmers to ensure that they plant the right seed, that they are able to cater for their trees or care for their trees in the right way, and also they are able to get the actual byproduct from this palm or from this palm trees the right way. Aside from that, you could create aggregator hubs whereby they could deposit or bring all their palm seed after being harvested for them to be appropriately compensated. And the only way you could get a greater value from the chain is for you to ensure that there are regional hubs and there are also manufacturing companies that have the right capacity to turn this palm kernel into finished goods such as palm oil and other byproducts that could be derived from the palm kernel fruit. So government has to invest across the whole value chain, and it's an opportunity to earn a lot of exports because there's a global demand. The total value of the palm oil industry is above $50 billion. So there's a lot of value there, but we're only getting a fraction. And the two major players, Malaysia and Indonesia, were not even within the space as far back as the 1950s. And were not majorly within the space. Nigeria alone was contributing close to 45% of the total palm oil global value chain.
Okay, now we know that Malaysia and Indonesia, back in the day, they used to be below Nigeria. Nigeria was like one of the highest producers, and Malaysia and Indonesia, who are now the highest exporters of palm oil, before they came up. Now Nigeria is importing palm oil from Malaysia majorly. Now, what would you say to that? How would you, how can Nigeria come up again from where they used to be? What are the strategies that can be put in place to ensure that Nigeria, takes its place as the giant, with regards to palm oil production? And what can government do to actually encourage investors to come invest in this sector?
So one, there's a need, aside from the government, there's also a need for the private players to play within the space. Government alone cannot do everything. Nigeria is not totally a socialist economy or a socialist society. Nigeria is more or less like an hybrid of a socialist and a capitalist society. So we need the private investors, and I would rather propose a public-private partnership model to ensure that this palm estate or the forest where this palm are majorly sourced are carefully studied and preserved to see how we could improve. Nigeria can actually do much more than the 1.2 trillion metric tons of palm oil that is produced per day. Nigeria can do much more than that. So they need to invest rightly within that particular space to ensure that they're able to get the right product from the palm estate. Also, they need to invest such that there are enough aggregators to bring everything to a collection point where it's being processed. You cannot, when it comes to agriculture, you cannot really get the value at the finished product. So it's only when you are involved in the whole value chain. So from the palm kernel down to the finished product, you need to play heavily in that. You cannot just be exporting the palm kernel and be able to get the best out of it. You are not going to get the best out of it because there are a lot of opportunities that you're going to lose. So just the same way they've taken a bullish step, Nigeria have taken a bullish step in the crude oil by supporting Dangote to have a refinery which is going to be dispensing diesel and jet one fuel this year, and also investing in the modular refineries, and also planning to lease the Port Harcourt refineries and other refineries to private investors. So you should also do that for the agricultural space too. Those are things that I think you are going to be able to get value from. If you're able to do that, just apply the same strategy that I've done recently within the crude oil space to the agricultural space, then you'll be able to get the more value from it and even perform better than Indonesia or Malaysia, because the government is supporting a major form of revenue and is highly industrialized. Let us also reflect on that and see how we can do that here.